I got paralyzed with the fear of using this beautiful, beautiful yarn. Welcome back to another crochet vlog. Today we're just going to talk about a few things that are on my mind while I work on a project. And if you like this kind of content, invite the like button over for your next yarn haul unboxing to see all of the amazing things you have. And make sure you subscribe so that you always have some great content to watch while you're working on your next project. Today I am actually working on a pattern by, I'm going to forget the name, and it was published by Expression Fiber Arts. She's not the designer, but she's the one that shared the pattern, and it's a lovely sort of kind of 3/4 sleeves kind of link. I'll show you the picture here. And I'm working on that right now using the Knit Picks Sangria. It was called Stroll Effects yarn. So this is a beautiful, lovely, a little bit pricier, but not really expensive yarn. And I think it's just lovely for this so far. This is what I have. So you can see it's kind of getting wider as you go because it's got that kind of bowed style in the sleeves. And I thought that would be really fun for me for this time of year. That is what I'm working on. Let's see if I can figure out where we're going from here. Okay. This pattern is actually increases at the corners, and otherwise it's just double crochets all the way around. So it's very simple, but I have to check where I am and what direction I am going. So I'm going to look at my pattern real quick here. Okay, now I am ready to rock and roll on this. So I was thinking the other day, and so I thought I'd talk about this today because I like to kind of have something to really think about as we are doing these crochets and chats, and not just share with you, what's going on in my world. As much as you might enjoy that, I think it might get a little boring after a while because my life is not that exciting and interesting by any means. I am fairly retired. I do very little on the way of actual business work anymore. I have usually a couple hours a day that I do some business work. And other than that, I plan my travel trips during the summer, and I enjoy crocheting. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've been very fortunate. But today I wanted to sort of talk about something that's been kind of stopping me and the decision that I made about it. I'm a very frugal person. If you watch the channel at all, I've shared that before. I'm very frugal. I don't like, in my past, I have had a very strong block against spending money. Part of that, I think, is because I grew up with a parent who spent a lot of money that I didn't feel like we had. And so when it came to things that I would need, we didn't have money for those things because the money was already spent on things that particular parent wanted but didn't necessarily need. This parent had a spending addiction. I'm pretty well convinced of that. So I think I rebelled and went in the opposite direction and said, I'm not going to buy anything for myself. I just can't do it. If I can't find a really valuable reason to spend that money on myself, I am not going to spend the money on myself. And I spent a long, long, long time in that mindset. And I can remember the first time that I bought myself a beautiful watch. It was $150. And to me, that was a lot of money. And I agonized over that decision to buy that watch. It was gorgeous. And to this day, I still have the watch. It is a lovely, lovely watch. I still get compliments when I wear it. I don't wear it that often because it's not really my style anymore, but I keep it anyway as just that reminder of what I went through when I was kind of in that stuck place of I can't spend any money on myself. Now, I don't want this to come across as giving you permission to spend more money than you have. That's not it by any means. You really do have to have that balance in your life. There are things that I do without because it's I've learned as I've gotten older to say it's not that I can't afford, it's that I choose not to. Because most things in my life at this point that I would really want to have, I can afford. But it doesn't make sense for me to not have those things, to spend the money on those things. Beautiful pieces of artwork that I really don't have any place to put in my home. I can afford it. Doesn't mean I should be buying it. And at any level financial that we are, I think that philosophy makes sense. It doesn't mean you can't afford it, but doesn't mean that you have to have it either. So really consider where you are financially and the money that you can afford to spend. But when you do choose to spend money wisely and with a conscious mindset, like I'm spending this money and I'm going to enjoy the fruits of this money, then really dive in and enjoy them. This was sort of a long way around of saying I have been holding off on using some gorgeous yarn that I have. Absolutely beautiful hand-dyed yarn. So I've got some of it over here. Like this, I know this package is going to be all crinkly. This is Casbah, and it's by Hand Dyed. I think that's the name of the company. I'll take it out so it's not quite as crinkly. Handmaiden fine yarn. And this is a 81% merino, 9% cashmere, 10% nylon. It is absolutely stunning. And it's about $32 a skein. So I've got a silver that matches, and I've got this one. So this is $62 worth of yarn here. And then I've got this other one. I actually have two of these. This is Zen Yarn Garden. And this is Serenity Silk, 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, 10% silk. And this is also a hand dyed, and it is $34 a skein. And I have two of these. And I've been holding on to these with this mindset that someday I will be good enough to crochet something absolutely stunning with these yarns. But I'm not going to use these beautiful, really super expensive yarns until I'm good enough, until I know that I can make something that is absolutely gorgeous and not feel like I just wasted $60 worth of yarn. And then, and I've had this mindset. Now, let me put a caveat in here. I didn't even buy these yarns. These yarns were gifted to me. They were somebody else's who has decided she's not going to use them. My mother-in-law gave them to me from her stash. She's not going to use them. I believe they were given to her. I could be wrong about that. She might have bought them, but they're not the typical colors that she would buy for herself. So I think they actually came to her. And she gifted them to me. But nonetheless, if I were to go out and spend $60 on two skeins of yarn, would I struggle to actually use those in a pattern because I would be afraid that I would mess it up. That's the mindset that I've been kind of going off of ever since I received these yarns. I'm like, someday I'll use those. They are absolutely stunning, and someday I'll use those. So can you relate to that? Does that make any sense to you at all? Do you have any of those beautiful yarns like that you're like, someday maybe I'll use them? Now, if you're just using them for decoration and you just think that they're gorgeous and they're sitting up there, absolutely enjoy them like that. But for me, I would much rather make something with them that I can wear or display or use in some way, because then not only do I get the benefit of the beautiful yarn, I get the benefit of using the beautiful yarn while I'm making the project. I get the benefit of using the beautiful yarn while I'm using the resulting project. And I may even get the benefit of a compliment here and there. So to me, there's a lot more win-win by actually turning the beautiful yarn into something beautiful. But because I was so afraid of wasting it on a project that I didn't know how to do, or I was just going to end up messing it up, or, oh my gosh, am I going to cut it too many times and it's just not going to have the right result, I got paralyzed with the fear of using this beautiful, beautiful yarn. And then I remembered an old phrase by, I think it was Dear Abby. I could be wrong. I'll share with you whoever it is I figured out once I figure it out. But basically, she has this poem. Maybe it was, I'm not going to remember, but there's this whole poem, and it's about using the good china. You know, don't be afraid to use that good china. I'll link to the column below, but it's from an article that Irma Bombeck wrote called If I Had My Life to Live Over. And the idea is all of the things that she would do differently if she had her life to live over again. And one of the things that she would do differently is she would use the good china. She wouldn't save that for the special occasions. She wouldn't save, that for only when the holidays were around, because every day is a holiday and every day is special. And that's sort of the attitude that I realized I was getting stuck in, that pattern of I'm only going to use the good yarn when. And that's kind of sad. I'm kind of disappointed that I had that thought process. I thought it was a little past that, but that's okay. I'm going to let myself off the hook. But I'm also going to let myself off the hook about being perfect. I don't have to be so experienced that I'm not going to make a single mistake, because you know what? We all make mistakes, and every pattern is going to have some tricky points that are going to be a little bit harder, and we might make a mistake in there. That's absolutely okay. I'm not going to wait anymore. I want to use the good yarns. I want to enjoy the yarns that I have. Can I still buy inexpensive yarns? Absolutely. Can I still buy the yarns that are kind of middle of the road, like this one, which is $14 a skein instead of $30 a skein? Absolutely. But I'm not going to deprive myself of the enjoyment of any of them just based on the cost alone. If I have that item and I want to use it, there are no excuses for me to say, I'm going to wait, because what if? If I have the money to buy the good yarn and I want to buy it to make something, I'm not going to use the excuse, I'm not really worth a $60 sweater or a $100 sweater. Because if I have the money to spend it and that's what I would enjoy, then it's not a $60 or $100 sweater. It is a hobby that I get. Okay, so here's the thing. Let me show you. I purchased, oops, there's something in here. Oh, I have stitch markers in there. Look at that, a little bit everywhere. And some dust. Oof, I need to dust. Okay, I bought this beautiful yarn in the Outer Banks, and I shared it on social media. And when I shared it, I didn't do this on purpose, but the price tag showed. And I spent about $30, $34, I think, on a single skein of this hand-dyed yarn in the Outer Banks. And when I purchased it, I was a little like, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. And then I went to justifying it. And while it was a justification, it, to me, it made it so well worth that money, because it wasn't just a $34 skein of yarn. It was a $34 souvenir, and I would not blink about spending $34 on a souvenir. I mean, I spend $20 on t-shirts. Why wouldn't I spend $34 on a souvenir? It was a $34 investment in some time that I could spend doing something, using something absolutely stunning, as I'm spending, hours crocheting this. I'm remembering. So it's more than a souvenir. It's a souvenir that I get to continue using. I got to use the beautiful yarn while I was making it, and now I use this as one of my project bags. So every time I go somewhere, I get compliments on it, and it reminds me of being in the Outer Banks. That was an amazing $34 spent. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. I won't even think twice about spending that kind of money now. When I first did it, I was like, oof, that's $34. I've never spent that much on yarn before. But now I understand that there's more benefits than if I were just buying yarn to make, I don't know, just something that I'm going to turn around and sell. There was so much more to that for me. So the cost of the yarn to me isn't just about how much I spend on it. It's also all of the different values that I get out of it. It's if I spend $60 to buy enough yarn to make a sweater, I'm not buying a $60 sweater. I'm investing okay, so if I were to go to the store, I'd spend maybe $30 on a sweater. So now it's costing me $30 to make my own sweater, because I'd buy a sweater for $30. Instead, I'm making it, it's costing me $30. But I'm spending, let's say, 20 hours. We'll just keep it easy. 15 hours on that sweater. Probably would take me longer than that, but we're just trying to, math's not my thing, so we're going to make it easy here. So now I'm spending 15 hours making that sweater. So I could go to the movies for $20 for 2 hours, so that's $10 an hour. Or I can crochet my sweater at $2 an hour. It costs me $2 an hour to have something that I am enjoying. Or I could go to a therapist and have somebody talking to me to work through my stress and anxiety for $150 an hour. Or I could work on crocheting a sweater for $2 an hour. So to me, it's more than just the value of the yarn. It is all of the things that I get out of the yarn in addition to it. Now, could I accomplish many of those same things with a $10 or even a $5 skein of yarn? Yes. And I enjoy the beautiful yarns, and I can understand why it makes sense. Like, I'm not afraid to use a $5 skein of yarn. And if the project calls for it, I absolutely will use a $5 skein of yarn. The hat that I'm wearing, it's the San, I'm not gonna remember the name. It's a lacy slouch hat. It's a San Fiorno, San something. Uh, yeah, I'll share the link. And the yarn that I used, I bought in Tennessee at a yarn store. It was actually on clearance, but I got one skein of it. The regular price on it was $15. Now, I think this is a beautiful colorway, very different than anything that I could buy for $5. So for sure, to me, because I love these different hand-dyed yarns, it's worth spending the extra money. And I get so much more enjoyment using it as I get to see how these things work up and enjoy the pattern revealing itself as I go. So the message really there is, don't be afraid to use the good china. Don't be afraid to wear your favorite outfits. And that's another good reminder, because a lot of times the crochet that I've just spent lots and lots of time working on, I'm like, well, hey, I'm going to record a crochet video, so let me throw on that crochet top. But as soon as I'm done, I'm going to take it off because I don't want to ruin it, and I don't want to have to wash it, and I don't want to have to do this. I got to get over that. I got to let myself off the hook and say, you know what? This is a beautiful top, and if I want to wear it all day long, I can do that, because there is absolutely no sense in me saving all of these beautiful garments that I'm making and never wearing them. So someday my son has to go through my house and get rid of all of these wonderful crochet garments that I have made but never worn because I was afraid of ruining them. That's not going to be a good vibe. So if I make it, I am absolutely going to wear it. And that's a promise that I'm going to make to myself. At least once a week, I am going to wear one of my crochet tops. Now, I'm going to tell you, that is scary for me in a different reason, because I'm a workout girl, and my go-to, because I work from home, I am more likely to be caught in a t-shirt and bike shorts that I can work out in at a moment's notice, rather than sort of dressing even, kind of like what I would call grocery store casual. I know grocery store casual these days is t-shirt and bike shorts, but I generally would rather wear at least, a nice shirt, a decent shirt, and, some sort of nice shorts out to a grocery store. I know maybe, there's still those people that like to wear slippers and pajamas. I'm not one of them. Have I been caught in bike shorts and a messy bun at a grocery store? Absolutely. But what I would prefer would be to wear something at least not like I just walked out of the gym. Let's just put it that way. However, when I'm at home, that is how I am dressed probably 90% of the time. So making a promise to myself to wear one of my crochet tops at least once a week goes just a little bit outside of my comfort zone, from the perspective of, but what if I want to work out today? I need to be able to just go downstairs into my basement and hop on my treadmill and go. So that's why that might be a little bit outside of my comfort zone. What's your china? What's your good china? What is that one thing that you keep saving and you're like, I don't want to use this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, because I don't want to ruin it. And are you willing to let that go? Are you willing to let yourself off the hook and say, if I had my life to live over, I would use the good china. I would, I would wear what gave me joy. I would use the yarns that bring pleasure to me, and those kind of things. I want to know, what do you think? And do you like this topic? Do you like it when I kind of riff on some philosophical life sort of lessons that I come up with? I enjoy sharing them for sure. It's just kind of part of who I am. And I gotta say, this sort of come up a little bit because I was really excited. I had this yarn and I had another one from Knit Picks that I am working on. I don't have it in here. I'm working on an arrow sweater. This one right here. In fall colors, and I was really excited to get started on those. And then as I got started, I'm like, wow, these kind of are boring patterns. And so, I mean, it's really just more enjoying the yarn and the colors than it is actually challenging my crochet skill set. And I'm trying to decide, I really do want to challenge my crochet skills. I'm trying to decide if I want to work on mosaics, which really, really appeals to me, but the idea of spending months on a blanket does not appeal to me. I don't think that I have the patience to invest several months working on the same project. I am much more of a quick win. If it takes me more than 3 weeks, that's got to be. I have a few projects that took me maybe 5 or 6 weeks, but not too many, and nothing that took longer than that. So I like to have the projects that I can check off the box. Now, maybe if it's something that I am continually learning, because learning is one of my strengths. That's one of those things that keeps me moving forward. I am a lifelong learner. I love, love, love to learn things. So maybe if it was like a project that took longer but required me to continually learn something new, and I'm not sure that once I mastered, or once I got into the flow of doing a long mosaic, like a blanket or something like that, I think it would get a little tedious for me. That's my fear. I don't know. So I might start with maybe some smaller mosaics, like a wall hanging or something like that. Or I actually have a couple I was practicing late in the spring, early summer. I was practicing during doing my first mosaic as a paw print. And I was going to use a bunch of small skeins of yarn that I had gotten when I first started crocheting. I was just going to use those up, and I was going to make kind of a colorful dog bowl mat, because my dogs, I need a mat under their bowl because they are very messy drinkers. And so I was going to just crochet a whole bunch of coaster size paw prints and then stitch those together into a mat. So maybe I'll keep working on that and work on those mosaic skills and then kind of expand from there a little bit. I also have a sweater that I picked out, and I was actually considering using this yarn for, but then it turned out that the yarn she used, even though she said fingering, in the pattern, in the notes, she kind of said, this is really closer to a DK, so you might want to do a sport or a DK weight instead in order to get gauge. And it seems like it's a little bit more technical of a pattern, so a little bit more intermediate level. And so I might try that. I might try something that's a little bit more of an advanced style. And at the same time, I kind of really want to get good at some of these basic things so that I can start exploring the idea of possibly doing some design modifications. Now, I'm not sure how this would work with copyright issues, and I think that I would reach out to the designer and say, is there a way we can do a collaboration? I don't think that I am skilled enough to or ready to crochet a project from scratch on my own. Not crochet one. That's not what I mean. Design a pattern from scratch. There is a lot that goes into pattern design. And for those of you out there that are sharing patterns that you have purchased, please understand that the designers have put hours into designing these projects, hours and hours and hours of getting the right sizing, of, making sure that the pattern is legible and understandable. And all of those good things go into designing these patterns. And then for you to share their pattern that they're trying to make a little bit of money, $6 or $7 is not a lot of money in the scheme of things. I mean, they might sell 100 of these patterns and make $70 for their time. That's not much. So be gracious. And, there are plenty of free patterns out there. So if you are not in a position where you can afford the patterns, go for the free ones instead of trying to get a hold of some of these that are paid patterns and get them for free. Just my 2 cents on that. So I really would love to consider trying to design a pattern from scratch. But again, I'm not sure that I have the patience to invest all of that time and energy into designing something. However, I think that I would be very good at doing some significant modifications to a pattern to make it very different than it started, but not so different that you can't tell where the inspiration pattern came from. So it would be things like adding different colors or different sort of hems. The base of the project might be the same, but there might be different embellishments that are added. And so with that, if that's what I did, I would absolutely want to work with the original designer and find out what their feelings are about that before I actually moved forward to make those changes. I don't know what that would look like. I'd have to explore it for sure in more detail before I actually did that. But that's something that I'm considering. And who knows? I've got a long way to go. I'm only a year and a half into my crochet journey, which is infantile compared to some of these amazing, amazing crocheters out there. I don't know. I started out, when I started crocheting, I thought, oh, I'm going to be an amigurumi crocheter. That's all I'm really interested in is, I started it because I thought I wanted to make all these cute little critters, and that's all I was going to do. And as I got into it, I realized those cute little critters require quite a tight tension, and that is a little bit painful for me overall. So I can only crochet like that for maybe an hour a day. And so then I started exploring other things. So you never know where your crochet journey takes you. And that's, that's the journey is part of the appeal for me. I love the journey. That's why I love RV road trips, because I love the journey as much as the destination. The message for this particular episode is enjoy the journey as much as the destination, and let yourself off the hook to do some of those amazing things that you've been saying, I can't do that yet. All right? Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.